Here in Christiana was a safe haven for those freedom seekers. They came here because they could find work here. They found they could actually get paid for their work, have a family, and actually have a life of peace. Unfortunately, here in Christiana, we had a group of men called the Gap Gang. And sadly, they were known for stealing horses, cows, chickens, whatever they could get their hands on. But they found that they could make much more money by stealing people. They began by kidnapping anyone they saw working alone in the fields, any blacks, that they could sell south and make much more money. They had a gentleman in their group called William Paget, who was more or less used as a scout. He would walk through the area in the guise of a tinker, looking for work and looking for new faces in the area. When he saw a new face, he would report back to the Gap Gang, and they would proceed to plan to kidnap this person and then sell them south, in Maryland most likely. We had a gentleman here in Christiana by the name of William Parker, himself at one time a freedom seeker. But once he got here and worked and had his family, he vowed by his own right arm that he would assist anyone who wanted their freedom to maintain their freedom. When he heard of what the Gap Gang was doing, he created his own group. They found the way that the Gap Gang took to Maryland, where they did their selling, and they would lay in wait for these as they came through. They would ambush the Gap Gang, and then they would take back that person they had kidnapped. This created quite a rivalry within these two groups, but William Parker was able to help these people maintain their freedom. And it was through William Paget that they found there were 4 men here in Christiana from the Gorsuch plantation in Baltimore County. Mr. Paget sent word to Mr. Gorsuch that his men were here and that he would assist him in retrieving his property. Mr. Gorsuch used the Fugitive Slave Act, which said as long as he had proper documentation, he could come into a free state and retrieve what he deemed to be his property. So he got his documentation. He brought his son, his nephew, and a few others and went to Philadelphia to the magistrate's office to get the proper documentation, allowing him to come to Christiana. But what they didn't know while they were in the office making plans, there was a man there working. He was an agent for a man named William Still. William Still was known as the father of the Underground Railroad. This gentleman stopped his work. Well, he didn't actually stop. He slowed down what he was doing so he could hear all of their plans. Once he got all the information, he went directly to Mr. Still and told him what he'd heard. William Still told him to get to Christiana and warn them what was coming. He did so. He got on the next train to Christiana, but was a little dismayed because he turned around and saw the Gorsuch party on the same train. He was worried about how he could get word to them before they actually came upon them. Luckily for him, they stopped at Penningtonville. They got off thinking that it would be better for them to sneak up on them and not just arrive on the train. This gave this gentleman time to get to Mr. Parker's house where these gentlemen were staying and warn them what was coming. So, on the morning of September 11th, 1851, at 4 a.m., Mr. Gorsuch made his approach to the Parker home. I think he was forgetting that this was farming country, and at 4 a.m. they are most likely up already, so he did not actually sneak up on them. They were aware of his arrival. He made his approach to the Parker house, and Mr. Parker, his wife, her sister, and her sister's husband, along with these gentlemen Mr. Gorsuch was looking for, had barricaded themselves up in the second floor. Mr. Gorsuch made his announcement and demanded his property. Mr. Parker yelled out, "If it's property you want, please go to the barn. There's horses, cows, chickens. You may take whatever you want because that's property." Well, this angered Mr. Gorsuch. He actually stepped inside the doorway of Mr. Parker's home. Mr. Parker came halfway down the steps, and Mr. Gorsuch demanded his property. Mr. Parker said, "If it's property you want, look around. There's tables, there's chairs. You may take what you want." Well, this really incensed Mr. Gorsuch, and at this point, he started quoting Bible verses to substantiate his view on slavery. He wasn't aware the man he was speaking to was known as the preacher. So for every verse Mr. Gorsuch threw out, Mr. Parker countered. This went on for several minutes before someone in Mr. Gorsuch's party got a little antsy, got a little nervous, and fired off a shot, just missing Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker retreated upstairs. His wife, Eliza, ran up to the attic and started blowing a fish horn. That was their alarm in the valley that there was danger and that they needed help. She started blowing the horn. Those gentlemen in Mr. Gorsuch's party started shooting at her, but she just got down lower and kept blowing. In the meantime, a few miles up the road at Flour Mill, there were these Quaker gentlemen, Mr. Kastner Hanway, Elijah Lewis, and Joe Scarlett. They heard all the melee going on down there, so they decided to come and see what was going on. Mr. Kastner Hanway was the first to arrive on horseback, and he was met by a federal marshal. His name was Henry Klein. Mr. Klein tried to deputize these gentlemen using the Fugitive Slave Act, which said you could not refuse to assist in the capture of a runaway slave. Mr. Hanway refused. It was at this point that Mr. Hanway looked about and he saw coming through the cornfields men with rifles and pitchforks and other implements. And he looked at the federal marshal and said, "I suggest you leave because these gentlemen are willing to fight to the death for their freedom." And it was at this point that Mr. Klein took off saying he was going to get help. I don't know that he ever came back. But it was at this point when the dust settled, they all came out in the field and they found one person sadly dead, and that was Edward Gorsuch, the slave owner.